So, again, good morning and welcome to Cotton and Coffee. We are so thrilled to have you join us for this special session, a coffee break with Liz Hershfield, one of the new leading voices in the cotton industry. Before we get started, I'm going to let Gary Adams, president of the National Cotton Council, introduce Liz and give us an overview of the role of Cotton Council International within the cotton industry. So, welcome, Gary.
Good morning, Stacy, and good morning to everyone. And it is a pleasure to be with you today, and my great pleasure to introduce the new Executive Director of Cotton Council International, Liz Hershfield. She brings extensive experience in the textile industry and sustainability, working with supply chain. She's been a longtime fan of U.S. cotton, and we're really excited to have her lead the efforts and the work of Cotton Council International. As most of you probably know, CCI is the export promotion arm of the National Cotton Council, and as such, it's their mission to promote U.S. cotton and U.S. cotton manufactured products around the globe. And that's a critically important job given that we have about 85% of our U.S. cotton production that's exported as raw fiber, and much of the remaining 15% that's used by our textile industry is exported in yarns and fabrics. So it's in today's competitive global environment, the work of CCI is very important. Much of the work of CCI is funded through programs authorized by the Farm Bill, specifically the Market Access Program and the Foreign Market Development Program. But CCI could also not carry out the work it's doing without the generous support of the cotton industry. And a number of organizations provide industry support to CCI, specifically Cotton Incorporated, AXA, AMCOT, and several producer interest organizations that are represented here today. And so again, without that support, we couldn't carry out the mission of CCI. So I want to thank you for your support and join me in welcoming Liz Hershfield to the cotton industry. So with that, Stacy, I will stop and turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for that introduction. We are so excited to learn more about Liz and her vision and how she sees the future of U.S. cotton. So, Liz, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Stacy.
Yeah, so
So nice
let's
to be here.
yeah, let's start with a little bit of background. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to be here. Really excited to see some familiar faces and get to know folks across the industry. So I've started my career in the fashion industry. I've been in the fashion industry for 30 years. Really started off on the product side, developing product, working with designers, sourcing fabrics, all of that, and eventually expanded into the full supply chain. So really, always starting with the product and working with designers to develop product that met, whatever it was that the brand that I was working for wanted, that aesthetic. Also, then working with manufacturers and suppliers offshore and also in the United States, spinners, mills, all of that, overseeing fabric R&D and research and development. And eventually, dealing with the full supply chain, so the shipping, into the United States and the fulfillment to the customers. So I've had the great opportunity to work for some really exciting brands and companies. Gap Inc. I was at Old Navy for 7 years early in my career. Had a couple of roles in other companies prior to that. And then, I moved on to a company called Bonobos that some of you may or may not know. It was a men's pants startup. I was the 19th employee and I was there for 10 years. It was a pretty amazing experience. It really, I think, really, while Old Navy and Gap Inc. was very formative for me in terms of working for such an amazing, huge, multi-billion-dollar public company. I had the opportunity to learn so much about international business and, just how a big company like that operates. Bonobos was just a whole different experience. Really, working for a company that was funded by angel investors to start and, really opened my eyes up to innovation and managing my world in a very different way, which, I think really helped kind of catapult my career. So I was there for 10 years, as I mentioned. We eventually sold the company to Walmart about 7 years in. And so then I stayed on the Walmart side for a couple of years. I moved to the Walmart side a year after the acquisition. And during that time, around 2015, when the Paris Climate Accord was signed, is when I started to get pretty passionate about sustainability. And so I was very fortunate because I had a lot of opportunity to learn and really dive into the industry. And then the Walmart team is amazing, and they have an amazing sustainability team, and they really embraced me and the work that we were doing when the acquisition happened. And so I was able to create a career path really for myself doing both, which in the fashion industry is a little bit unusual, especially as like sustainability became like the trendy thing to do. And this is no, like everyone, all sustainability professionals are amazing, but a lot of folks went and this was something they're really passionate about. They went and got their MBAs, which is phenomenal. But then they would come into a company and they didn't really understand the business. And so a lot of times the sustainability teams and the business side, the product side, were a little bit at odds with each other just because like, sustainability wants to do X and the teams don't know how to do that. They've got to hit their profit margins. And how do you like actually combine the two? And I was very fortunate and grateful to be able to understand both sides. And so eventually I was recruited by J. Crew Group and oversaw sustainability for all the brands, including as well overseeing production, product development, and sourcing for their Madewell brand. There, I had an opportunity to really dive in to soil health and the cotton industry. I'd become really passionate during my learnings on the environment or when I was at Bonobos about soil health because it felt like a really impactful way for a company and a brand that use a lot of cotton to actually impact the environment positively. And so while I was at J. Crew Group, I was really fortunate to have a lot of support from my boss, the CEO, and our board around really leading in the industry. And so we were able to implement a program that, had been concepted prior to me coming there, but just never got off the ground at Bonobos and Walmart, where we were incentivizing U.S. cotton farmers, to make the transition to regenerative farming. Although what I didn't know when we were having the conversations, they were already doing all those practices, right? And so really we needed a certification because as a brand, you cannot talk about anything unless there is something backing it up. And it's frustrating because I think the industry is in certification overload on all aspects. But we were able to bring a regenerative certification into the US. And I think when I left, we were at about like 40 growers where we were basically paying, an impact incentive to help support the extra cost of those regenerative practices. And then we were saying, hey, we'll commit to a certain amount of cotton. We're going to ask our suppliers to buy that cotton. And that's kind of how it went. And so that was my real like kind of like deep dive into the cotton industry where I became even more passionate about it. Really exciting. And actually, Brent, who's on this call, was a partner in that when I was at J. Crew Group. So it was great. He was definitely responsible for introducing me to a lot of the industry and getting me involved. So yeah, and then, I left the company, J. Crew Group, in 2024 and early 24 and started a consulting business called Greenish. And the idea was connecting sustainability and the bit and business, right? Because it has been an issue in the industry. And how do you make it work for your business? Because you can have all these great sustainable practices, but if it puts you out of business, it doesn't matter, right? You need to be able to like combine it into your business in a realistic way. At any rate, I had known the cotton industry, the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol folks, Bruce and Gary. J. Crew was one of the first pilot brands for the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol, something I believe in a lot. I'm really excited about. And so as I left J. Crew Group, Bruce had said, hey, we need someone to come talk at some of our events about a brand perspective on sustainability and cotton. And so I had the great fortune last year of being able to go 3 trips to 6 different events in 5 different countries and speak about U.S. cotton and a brand perspective. And that's where I really got my introduction to CCI. I didn't know CCI exists, to be honest, before then. And I keep saying as I'm doing these conversations, like I think it's the best kept secret. And I wish I knew more about it when I was on the brand side, because I think there's a lot of tools that CCI could offer brands that would be really helpful to them. At any rate, this opportunity came up. It's not something that I was expecting, and it turned out to just be a perfect kind of next step for me in my career, having the full supply chain and the brand side and really understanding that and the cotton industry, and then being able to come to an organization that's really focused on supporting the U.S. cotton industry. I'm super excited about. So
Well,
that's
you definitely have a unique lens, and I'm sure that that diversity of experience is going to serve you really well in this role. You've spoken about this a little bit, but your career is deeply rooted in sustainability, supply chain management, 2 topics that are more important than ever in today's global marketplace. What sparked your passion? You've spoken about passion.
Yeah.
What sparked your passion for those areas?
A great question. Early in my college days, I worked at a restaurant and I worked for the Gap in the stores, right? And I loved fashion and I thought like, oh, I'm gonna go be a buyer at the Gap. I grew up in California and I didn't know what that meant, right? And my dad actually encouraged me to go do something else and not try to work my way up the stores. And he he was in the industry unexpectedly. He was the president of FIT, but not because he was in the fashion industry. At any rate, his encouragement was right. I ended up actually taking one of my first roles at J.C. Penney and learning kind of merchandising and all that, and ended up moving to a small company in San Francisco called Buyer of California. And that's when I really started to understand what I loved about the industry. And it really was this idea. I love the product. I love the creativity and the innovation, but I also loved the business side of it and being able to like architect a product and get it to a price and the quality. And then eventually ended up at Gap, which was kind of my dream. And was an amazing opportunity for me. And that's where my eyes were really open to the international business side of things. And so really being able to take like the idea of being able to be creative and innovative, but also managing a business and all the complexities that come with international trade was something that I really loved. And I have a very operational mind. So I always want to look at things and see like, how can they be done in a more efficient way? And it just fit everything that I loved, right? And as the sustainability piece of it, as I got more involved in that aspect, it just became really passionate about it, particularly, and not on purpose, but ultimately very interesting. All of the brands I worked for were very cotton rich brands, right? Gap Inc., Old Navy, Bonobos, we were very natural, fiber focused, very cotton, and then also J. Crew Group as well. And so thinking about soil health and learning about that got me really passionate about like we can make small changes and we could impact in such a huge way. And when you think about the fact that we've repaired the ozone layer, when I was a kid, it was like, don't go outside, like you're gonna get, it's there's a hole in the ozone layer. We can kind of do anything. And I think that that's really exciting. And the innovation and the collaborative aspect of that part of the industry to me is really exciting.
I love that, and I love to hear your passion for it. All of us are very passionate, especially about cotton. So
Yes.
let's talk about the fiber. Can you tell us more about your connection to the fiber and really why you're ready to advocate for U.S. cotton?
Yeah, thanks. So great question also. Again, like because I kind of unintentionally was working for these brands that were so cotton rich, I kind of took it for granted. I didn't really understand it. But when we started working on this program with regenerative agriculture, when I was at J. Crew, and I mentioned Brent, and I really credit with him with really introducing me to the industry. I learned so much about cotton farming and U.S. cotton farmers in general, and just the things that were like the challenges, but also just the community and the history, which I think is just so important in the United States, right? To me, it's just like the basis of everything we do. Like farmers are so important to our economy, to our world. Like we need healthy soil, we need to farm our land, we need to support communities. And I think that being able to visit growers in Texas, which I had the opportunity to do when I was at J. Crew, really gave me a very direct view of just like these are all generational farms and families, and really the community is so amazing. And so for me, that history became really important, just as important as the environmental aspect of it, and supporting the growers in a way that made an impact on them. I felt was incredibly important. And a lot of people don't know that story or understand it. And I think when you get folks to a farm and you connect the brands with growers and they can hear firsthand the challenges, it totally changes everything. And so for me, that just kind of wrapped everything up in a bow for me. And I love cotton. I've always worn it traditionally. I've just like gravitated towards it. It's comfortable, it's breathable, it's easy. But supporting U.S. cotton is something I'm very, very passionate about.
That's great to hear. Cotton has such a powerful story, and hearing how we all feel personally connected to it, even when we're outside of the farm, I just think that's a great reminder of, why the work that we're doing matters. So let's shift gears to your new role as Executive Director of CCI. What are some of your immediate priorities as you step into this role? And then kind of second part to that question, how do they align with CCI's long-term goals?
Great. So, I'm a little over 30 days in. I had made a commitment like for the first 100 days to really just listen and learn and lead the team. It's a great and amazing team that's done a lot of work over the years to really elevate US cotton and create a very compelling program for mills and spinners. Um, I think the opportunity is bringing brands more in to this work. And obviously, US Cotton Trust Protocol is a piece of that. And so really figuring out like the way to make that more that connection more. I do think, the brands drive everything, right? And the consumers are driving the brands. So if we want to actually drive demand for cotton, we've got to like connect with the brands who are reacting to what the consumers want. So I think that's a really big opportunity. Of course, and we'll, the challenges with synthetics in Brazil, I think is something that's top of mind. I think we have a lot of ideas around synthetics and how to really start telling the U.S. cotton story and cotton in general, just more broadly, but also making more inroads with folks and brands around how they think about cotton and how they create their product using more new cotton-rich fabrics. And I think we have a really amazing solutions team on the CCI side that could really help develop product that's more cotton-rich and really kind of package something up that's perfect for a brand. And so that's something that's big on my list to try to dive into quickly. A lot of the stuff it won't be quick, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. And then continuing on this idea of innovation and just pushing the envelope on innovation and service is really important. We're exploring the idea of a loyalty program right now for CCI and as a part of US Cotton Trust Protocol, if you're a member, what other benefits do you get? How can we incentivize more, uptick of US cotton through that? And, while we have the mills and the spinners and the folks that buy the cotton, we have to bring the brands into that also because they're the ones that drive that demand. I mean, they're the ones that can tell those mills and spinners, hey, we want this cotton. And so US Cotton Trust Protocol is a really big piece of that. So supporting that is also really important.
That all sounds so exciting. Sounds like you've hit the ground running. Kind of balancing that short-term momentum with long-term vision is no small task. And I know that you've got your work cut out for you, but it really sounds like you're being very thoughtful about how to get through that work. So we're really excited. Okay, so bringing in your prior experience, your forward-looking approach, how do you envision you as a leader positively impacting the cotton industry?
Well, I think that having the brand side experience is really important because I can definitely give that perspective of, hey, if I was in a brand, this is what I would want, right? And I think that's important. Having that, it's like almost like the last like missing link of this amazing program. So how do we come bring it like full circle? And so we offer all of these things. How do we get the brands engaged? How do we grow the positive perception of US cotton with those brands? So that they want to support it in the way that we need them to, and they want to say like, "Hey, we want to nominate U.S. cotton." So I think having that experience is really going to be helpful. And then of course, like I really understand the supply chain and the whole, from cotton in the farm all the way to the manufacturer and the final product. And so I think that that's helpful. And as we think about different ways to approach some of our programs and offerings.
Awesome. There's a lot of optimism in that, and that is what this industry needs. So we are excited to hear it. Okay, so let's do a fun one to close us out. A lot of people say the cotton industry feels like one big family, and I would agree with that.
Mhm.
And so now that you're officially part of the cotton family, we want to get to know a little bit more about you. So tell us, what is your favorite way to spend a day off? When you're not working, what's Liz doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I am very obviously this role and my prior roles are very heavy travel, and so when I have days off, I really enjoy my downtime. Right, I like to take care of myself. I'm very much into exercising, health and wellness. I love an infrared sauna and a cold plunge. So those are some of the things that I really value when I have just some free time to be able to just do that. Although I do fit it in, my days when I'm, not traveling. But I love to cook. I'm a huge foodie, so I love to go out to eat. I love to cook. And a lot of that comes from my mom. She was an amazing cook, but also by travels around the world and getting to like taste all the international food. I love to host and spend time with friends and family. I mean, it's something that I really value a lot. lot. And, when the weather's nice, I'm always outside. I love the beach. I love being outside. I love going on walks. If I'm in the mountains, I like going on hikes. I love the fresh air. And when the weather's not great, I catch up on podcasts and Netflix and reading. And I'm a big consumer of information. I was a history major. And so I love information. I love documentaries. So I can kind of go down a rabbit hole when I have like just a lot of free time to do that.
Well, that's so fun to get to hear what makes you you, and we are so excited to have you officially part of the cotton industry, and thank you for sharing that with us. So, thanks for taking the time to join us today. We're excited to have you on board, and we can't wait to see what the future holds under your leadership at Cotton Council International. So, thanks for everyone who joined this Cotton and Coffee session.